Hi guys, so in today's video I want to share with you all the fertility tests that I have had done so far. So these are all the things that I had done after I found out that I had an ectopic pregnancy. So obviously after surgery and after giving myself 3 months of recovery time, my husband and I were cleared to start trying again. And we did, but we had no luck. So I started doing research on what things I could be doing which tests I should be doing to find out where my fertility really is at. At the time I was 29, so I knew that I was still young, but you know, up in the age where most people start looking at what their fertility markers are, so that they know if they should maybe, like, if they're single, maybe freeze their eggs or different things like that. So obviously I knew I had endometriosis, which is a big thing that can impact fertility, but I also want to know where I stood with everything else. So after doing some research on which stuff I should do, I found out that there is 3 labs that you should get done on a specific day of your cycle, which is day 3 of your cycle. So these are also known as day 3 labs, and that is for FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, LH, luteinizing hormone, and that's actually the hormone that you measure when you're doing like the ovulation predictor kits. And then it's known as E2, which is estradiol, and it's a marker, one of the estrogen markers. So the reason I thought I would share this too is because I actually had a few friends who got these levels done from their OB, but some OBs, especially ones that don't specialize in fertility, they know that you're supposed to get these tests done to look at your fertility, but they don't realize that they need to be done on a specific day to really give you a good idea of where your current fertility is at. So if you've had these labs done, FSH, LH, or estradiol, you want to make sure that your doctor ordered those on day 3 of your cycle. Any other day of your cycle, those labs being ordered probably not going to give you the best accurate result for what your fertility looks like right now, because these hormones kind of fluctuate throughout the cycle. But I mean, if they were done day 1 or day 2, that's fine too. So it's day 1 to 3 is when those should be done. So I had those done and everything looked completely normal and fine with those. Another test that I had done was Amh Anti-Mullerian Hormone, and this hormone, I guess it kind of looks at what your ovarian reserve potential is. There really is no way to tell how many eggs you have left because there's no way to actually look at that because they're inside of your ovaries. But AMH can give you an idea of how many follicles you are releasing each month, and the less that you're releasing each month means there's a potential that you kind of have a lower reserve than someone who might be producing a proper amount or even more, which if you're producing a lot of follicles or you have a high AMH, that could be indicative to PCOS. So my AMH was actually on the lower side. It wasn't in the lowest area where the doctor believed I had diminished ovarian reserve, but it was on the low end for my age. So that's another test that I had done. So far with those tests, I kind of knew that I'm sitting pretty well with my hormones, except my ovarian reserve might be on the lower side. So if I want to have kids, I need to get to it now. And that also means that with a lower AMH, sometimes you're not really viable for IVF. So that was another thing I had to consider. And IVF is something that I might really have to consider, having endometriosis. But, you know, we're not going to go that route just yet until we've tried naturally for a couple months now that I've had an excision surgery for my endometriosis. But a few other tests that I had done were... so after that, I had my progesterone check to make sure that I was effectively ovulating each month, and I was. So progesterone, again, a lot of OBs will just order day 21 labs, and for progesterone, and that is only useful if you ovulate on day 14 of your cycle, which means that if you do OPK tests, you would have a peak at around day 12 or 13 if you effectively ovulated on day 14, which would mean a day 21 draw of your progesterone is perfectly fine. However, I don't ovulate usually on day 14. I actually don't usually get my peaks on my ovulation predictor kits until about day 15, 16 sometimes. So I needed to make sure that I was going to get my progesterone levels checked at, it's usually 7 days past ovulation, but a peak doesn't necessarily mean you're going to ovulate that day. So I basically went about, I think, 8 or 9 days after I got my peak. And my levels were, sorry, dogs are going to bark. Hey, knock it off. Sarah, stop it. Sorry, dogs are going crazy. Yeah, so I basically did, oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Hopefully they'll be quiet for a little bit. I got my levels back at 12 nanograms per milliliter, which is a good amount for healthy progesterone levels, meaning that I definitely did ovulate, but I was a little concerned that they were still on the low side. So I just made a note of that. And after I got those, so basically those are all the blood labs that I had done. And I found that, you know, it was helpful to know where I was at currently with my blood labs, but obviously these things can change month to month. It definitely gave me a little bit of hope to know, okay, at least I don't have any issues, any more issues, besides the maybe low ovarian reserve. After that, I had an HSG done, and that is a Hysterosalpingogram, I believe is how you pronounce it. But it's basically where they take dye and they put it into your uterus and it flows into your fallopian tubes, and it's to make sure that there is no blockages there, which is something that we were very concerned was there because of my past ectopic pregnancy as well as having endometriosis. So I got that done, and it is very different for every individual. I've heard a lot of women say, oh, I got it done, I felt a little bit like period cramps, and you know, not too bad. As someone with endometriosis, I have extremely horrible periods, and I can say that, at least I did, I don't anymore now that I had a surgery, but I know what pain is when it comes to cramping, and the pain I felt from that procedure was something that, it was shocking. It was something that I really hope to God I never have to experience ever again. If I do, I want to be heavily medicated. And the reason being of why it was so painful now after the procedure, knowing that what happened, it was because of when the radiologist went and put the first tube of dye in, they noticed that there was a slight blockage, and so she decided that she wanted to try and break through that blockage to hopefully clear my tubes. And in doing that, she put another thing of dye through and had to kind of push hard just to make sure she can get through that blockage. And usually when they push through hard like that, it can cause the fallopian tubes to spasm, and I think that's what happened. And it felt like someone had stuck a knife up me and like started digging around. It was a very shocking, excruciating pain. I thought I was going to pass out, but it was over in about, I would say, like 10 seconds. It was very hard. They had to kind of hold me down, but once it was over, it was over. And luckily they were able to unblock my tubes according to what the HSG results were showing. So that was, you know, it was painful, but at least my tubes were now unblocked. So that gave us a little hope that maybe it would work. Unfortunately, we tried for an entire year and nothing happened. So at that point, I finally decided to move towards the next recommendation for myself, which was a full excision surgery of my endometriosis. And now we're here. So that excision surgery actually happened exactly 2 weeks ago today. and I'm on my first cycle right now, and we're gonna see how that goes. So I'm very excited to see what happens now. I know there's no guarantees, but I wanted to share with you guys all the labs and tests that I have done thus far. And like I said, month to month things can change. Now that I had the surgery, things can also change too. So I'm definitely going to be probably running those day 3 labs again, as well as possibly checking my AMH again. I already know it's on the low side, but maybe I'll check it again. But I'm for sure probably gonna get the day 3 labs done again, FSH, LH, and Estradiol. Also, I totally forgot to mention this, but one of the big things that I had checked, and this was something that I didn't get advised to be checked by an OB or anybody. It was actually advised to be checked by my the reproductive endocrinologist that I saw, who actually was the one who referred me to the surgeon who did my excision surgery. She wanted me to have my thyroid checked. And I had a doctor in the past tell me that they believed that I had Hashimoto's, so I knew that I had issues with my thyroid, but I'd never been put on any medication for it, never had it very much looked into after that. But I had had a full thyroid panel done, which is your TSH, free T3, free T4, T3 uptake, and you want to have your TPO antibodies checked as well as TGO antibodies checked if possible, but definitely TPO antibodies, because the antibodies are what are going to tell you if you have an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's versus just a hypo or hyperthyroid, depending on what your TSH levels show. But when we went to do the labs, I had always had a TSH that was like about under 2, so there was never any issues. But we actually found out that my TSH was now at a 3.8, which was the highest it had ever been. And when trying to conceive, you don't want a TSH to be higher than, I believe, 2, at the highest 2.5. So right then and there, my endocrinologist, my reproductive endocrinologist, advised that I get on levothyroxine, and I started that, and now my TSH is back down to 1.7, so that's good too. So that's another test I highly recommend getting done if you've been trying for a little while, or if you're wanting to try but you're not sure if you want to try just yet to get pregnant, but you want to get some labs done to see where your fertility and health is currently at. Highly recommend you getting these things, the day 3 labs, checking your AMH, making sure to check your progesterone levels 7 days past ovulation or 7 to 9 days past a peak reading on an OPK, to check progesterone and make sure that you actually are in fact ovulating. And if you have a history of an ectopic pregnancy, or you've been trying for a long time and you haven't gotten pregnant and you might have endometriosis or things aren't working, I highly recommend you asking your doctor about getting an HSG test done to make sure your tubes are open, and definitely doing the full thyroid panel. So you can just do TSH, that's what some doctors do, but it is a good idea to do a full thyroid panel just for your overall health, just so you know what you're really looking at. But yeah, so I hope this video was helpful, and if you guys have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.